What's up, guys? How we doing? Yeah, Kevin. Great to be here. Big crowd. Thanks for coming out, guys.
Before we get into your team, just curious about your thoughts of just kind of the state of college basketball with the FBI probe last week. How concerned are you about the health of the sport?
I'm not concerned with the overall health of it. I guess it's what's transpired in the last week is a little bit sobering, obviously. I feel for a lot of student athletes involved and coaches and families, but I don't think it's going to be a huge factor in terms of how many people watch college basketball this year. I don't, again, going back to your term, Kevin, just the overall health. I think that, of course, there's some things in this sport that need to be addressed like every sport, but we hadn't paid a lot of attention to it, to be honest with you. I'm sure you guys know a lot more about what's going on than we do. We're just going to keep doing things the way that we've been doing them here.
And, I know you challenged Chris over the offseason with his conditioning and leadership and so forth. Just what have you seen from him in terms of over the summer and in individual drills as far as maybe how he's taken on that challenge? Chris
has become a little bit more vocal. It's really not his nature to be an overly vocal guy, and I'm good with that. It's who he is. He's been a very good leader by example to this point. I think he's also a supportive leader in the locker room, and at the apartments and in the dorms, and he's a relationship guy. So in those ways, he's actually vocal outside the lines. We'll continue to try to challenge him to be more and more vocal between the lines, but pleased with his effort to this point. He's been really good defensively too in some of the abbreviated practices to this point.
Mike, right here. Can you give us an update on the health status of Stokes and then Igbunu?
Yeah, we've been really banged up here lately. I don't know what's gotten out and what hasn't, but Stokes and Igbunu, Duke's really pleased with their effort so far. They're right on track. We're looking probably January. He's sticking to that. Duke, would you argue with that? We good? January? You sure not December? He says no way, January. Gorjak Gak's been a little banged up with his knee. He played a bunch this summer and represented Australia, played really well, in my opinion. And we've held him out of workouts here recently. Hope to have him back to 100% here soon. And then we've had some other knick-knack stuff. Jalen Hudson had something. Igor Kulichov had he had a little illness there. We had the effects of Irma come through, and we're an out-of-season sport, so with school being canceled, we couldn't work out, so we lost a few workouts there. So we're trying to play catch up a little bit. We're trying to get healthy, but that's kind of where we are right now.
Coach, just in terms of Jalen Hudson's productivity, I know a lot of the reason for criticism of Hudson is his defense. Now, he is a bona fide scorer. How have you seen his defense improve over the offseason, and how many minutes could you see him playing in this season?
It'll all depend on his buy-in, his attention to detail, his accountability defensively and on the glass. And I hate to – I just want to be clear that the criticism has come from me. And I try to be as honest as possible when you guys ask me questions and tell you guys, for the most part, exactly what I'm telling these guys. And Jalen knows that. And Jalen will tell you, he'll be the first to tell you that his offense is in front of his defense. That said, it's not that his defense is horrible. Just offensively, he's really good. He's very talented. And he's working on that buy-in. He understands it. He'll remind me when he gets a hard rebound in practice or when he gets a defensive stop. He's a talented kid. He's a great kid. He's working hard. And his minutes will be dependent upon, for the most part, his attention to detail in those areas. Also will depend upon how other guys are playing, because we've got a few guys. We've got pretty good depth. And flow of the game, foul situations, opponents, attention to scouting report, all those things will go into play. But Jalen will play a bunch of minutes this year.
Not to say there weren't internal expectations before, but obviously when you get to the Elite Eight, you return a bunch of guys, the outside expectations raise up. Can that be a good thing, and how do you approach that?
I think it's good for our fans. I think it's good for recruiting. Just to add a little bit more excitement around the program. I just don't think it's got a big bearing on how we play. We're going to practice to a certain standard every day. We've got high character guys. They want to be as good as they possibly can be as players and as a team. The run last year, I think, gave us probably a little bit more confidence in terms of what we're doing and more buy-in. But I don't anticipate much external pressure, if you will, getting to us. We're going to put that on ourselves. Heck, we did that in year one when we were a very average team. I hope we're not a very average team this year. I think we have a chance to be as good as last year, different. Whether that equates into the same amount of wins or getting back to the tournament, and if you do, going back to the Elite Eight, I don't know about any of those things, but I do know we have a lot to work with, and we're focused on just being good Thursday. That's it. No result-oriented goals. Just really process-driven stuff right now.
After he redshirted his freshman year, Keith Stone had a big impact last year. What areas are you looking for him to improve this year, and what kind of role can he fill?
Keith could potentially be one of the guys, if not the guy, that enhances his role the most. He's going to be given a lot of opportunity. He's very talented. He's continued to become a better conditioned athlete, tougher physically and mentally. And he's matured probably as much as anybody. I said that a lot about Devin last year, and certainly hope that continues. I'm saying the same thing 5 games into the season. But right now he's in a pretty good place mentally. He's actually been very vocal in practices as just a sophomore, redshirt sophomore, albeit, but as a younger guy. I'm really pleased with him. He's working. He's rebounding the ball well. He's trying defensively. And we all know he's got some stuff that's hard to teach offensively with his size and pace and skill level, his versatility. He's like Jalen. He's a very gifted offensive player.
Yeah, hey Mike. So how the Elite Eight run? How much did that just kind of put a stamp on this as your program, validate what you're doing here? Just with
it's not
people.
My program. I'm just renting it right now.
Okay.
I'm just.
But,
you guys
but
are just accepting me for
the national
time
perception,
being.
though. You know what you're doing here, validating it.
I said this when I first got here. I've said it to recruits from day one. Florida's always going to win in all sports. We are. It's the standard here. The level of excellence in this athletic department is off the charts. To what extent, I don't know. Florida won before Coach Donovan. Coach Kruger went to the Final Four. Coach Donovan had an amazing run. Florida's going to win after I'm gone. They just are. So we weren't really out to prove to a lot of people that heck, we know what we're doing, or this is my job. I mean, it wasn't any of that. It was just trying to be as good as last year's teams possibly could be. It was nice to at least prove that, hey, we're okay. You know, we're healthy, just like the rest of the athletic department. But with Scott Strickland following Jeremy Foley and the same commitment to resources and facilities, and the head coaches that this athletic department has, and the unbelievable level of student athlete academically and athletically, this place is always going to win.
And the other one is last week's scandal obviously exposed some things, long-standing issues in the sport, AAU, shoe companies, etc. How do you go about running a program in terms of checks and balances, the way you recruit guys? I mean, just how do you go about that to avoid these kind of issues?
Well, first off, I would say very carefully. And we're not the only program that approaches it this way. Most do. You want to be careful with everything that's said and who you have relationships with and how you go about doing what you do. And as a staff, you want to be really familiar with the rule book, and you want to have an open line with your compliance department. Jamie McCloskey and Kim Green are really good at what they do, and on a very regular basis, we're in constant communication with those guys as a staff and meet on it a bunch. Scott Strickland wants to provide our student athletes with championship experience with integrity, and that's a charge to every coach on this campus every day.
Building off that, is there a positive side effect from this, that programs who are skirting the rules are going to be held accountable, and those that haven't, maybe it's a little more balanced playing field now?
Yeah, I just don't want to go there, Ryan. I think any time that you've got serious conversations taking place about our sport and how to make it better, that positives can come from it. But you hate to see what's happened to some of these guys. I guess the best way for me to answer it.
With Chioza, how heavy of a workload do you expect for him, and how much pressure do you think you can take off him this year?
Yeah, good one. I mean, Chris is pretty valuable. We talked about Keystone earlier. Chris is going to have an opportunity for his role to be expanded. Maybe not expanded, but to be a little bit more valuable to this team, as valuable as he was to last year's team, because he doesn't have that other senior next to him in Casey Hill, of course, with him graduating. So he's probably got a little bit of a healthy pressure to him on his shoulders. I hope he looks at it that way. Chris isn't a guy, I think you guys would agree, that's ever gotten really rattled, so I think he'll be fine with that. I think he'll embrace it. Pressure's on Michael Carew a little bit to grow up, and hopefully by November, December, he's not playing quite as much like a freshman. He's got to be able to help us, and I think he's excited about that opportunity. And then Kayvon Allen and Jalen Hudson as secondary ball handlers, probably Kayvon first, the way we're seeing it right now, have to be able to slide over and take some of the heat off of Chris and probably play some minutes, or be able to in a pinch for sure at that point guard spot.
Coach White, with Egbunu out and Stokes out, and besides Hayes not having too much of a true center, how confident do you feel in your front court depth in one of the most physical leagues in the country?
Still pretty confident. I think that if we can get Gorjak back, if we had a game tomorrow, we'd be hurting in that front line if we had some foul trouble, of course, or we had a rolled ankle. But if we get Gak back, you're looking at Hayes and Gak and Stone and Chase Johnson and Dante Bassett. You've got some depth there. You've got guys that are all a little bit different. You've got guys that are going to play hard. I think we know what we're going to get for the most part, at least from a couple of those guys, from a few of those guys. But certainly we'll go from having some questions to becoming very deep in the front court when you get John back. And then with Isaiah, the question may come, so I'll just answer it right now. There's still a chance there that a decision will be made on whether or not he plays this year.
Going back to Ryan's a little bit, point guard, Kayvon Allen, how many strides has he made at handling the ball and maybe being able to slide over there and give you some good minutes?
I think he made some strides going into last year and then during last season, just making decisions with the basketball. I don't think he gets overly careless with it, but he's got such a scoring mentality that that's been as much a factor as much as his decisions with the ball or him being able to take heat or ball pressure, because we want mentally for him to be really aggressive. And just sometimes your point guard is your volume shooter and scorer. Other guys are standing there watching, and so that played as much part into our decisions with not playing him at the point as much as the others, as well as the fact that you had two other veteran point guards. They were pretty good at what they did last year. Casey finishing as an all-league player, of course, and Chris finishing the way he did. But I think I think Kayvon will be fine sliding over this year. I think we'll be different with him at the point. He actually played some yesterday. Mike went out of again, it was an abbreviated practice, but Mike went out with a bump and bruise, and Kayvon led one of the teams at the point. And as a staff, we looked over and said, "Wow, we got Kayvon at the point. We got these two guys in the wings making shots. Pretty potent lineup in terms of scoring it." You know, the ball didn't move quite as much, but he'll be able to play some point for us.
And you talked about a guy at the wing. I assume you're talking about Igor there. His numbers were fantastic coming in.
Yeah.
Has he been even better in person than he was on paper?
You know, I'll shoot you straight. Yeah, a little bit better than I even anticipated. Plays really hard, leads by example, vocal at times, but trying to find his way, you know, as he's developing relationships with these guys. Really consistent, plays with a tremendous motor, and can make shots and can sprint into them, and takes good ones. You know, we're really pleased with him to this point. Of course, I'm sitting here like every college coach in the country, pretty pleased with their team. You know, for the most part, I think most guys are. We hadn't lost yet, but yeah, we've got a ways to go to be as good as we possibly can be. But I like the contributions we're getting in practice from a bunch of these guys right now, and they're working.
You reference your team could be just as good, but a little different. How differently? How so?
I think, Kevin, we could be better potentially, and I could be eating my words in December, but I'm just being honest with you here. I think we could be better offensively. I think we finished like 24th, maybe KenPom numbers last year. I'm not sure if we can be quite as good defensively. If this team is as good defensively as last year's team, we'll be really good. I'm not sure. We're going to strive for that every day. And you know, if you're a top 10 team defensively nationally year in and year out, then you're going to have a lot of success every year. This team, I don't think the mental and physical makeup will be as easy for this team to make it a top 5 defensive team in the country like last year's group. But we'll try, and maybe they'll surprise us. But I think we have more weapons offensively. I think we'll shoot it better offensively. That's it. I mean, for the most part, those are my thoughts.
How are the freshmen coming along, and do you anticipate any guys early that you feel like could contribute right away?
Yeah, so Stokes out right now, of course. We talked about Mike a little bit. Mike is very fast. He's got a lot of talent defensively, similar to Chris Chioza in his ability to contest shots, but stay in front of the basketball, create a little havoc on the basketball, great speed off of the basketball, really good rotator, communicates well. He's a work in progress in terms of becoming a pure point, as he knows, but he's really worked at it. He's got a great work ethic. And that's one thing I can say across the board with our freshman class. I've been blown away by their work ethic. My freshman class lives in the gym. They've been terrific in that regard. Mike's in the gym a bunch. Chase Johnson's in the gym as much as probably anybody on our team outside of Deandre Ballard. Chase has had a very good fall. He's tough. He's versatile. He's athletic. He's competing every day with Keystone and Igor and those type guys. He's had some good workouts, and he's as Mike's trying to find minutes, you know, at the 1 and the 2. Chase is pushing Keystone in that front court, and then Deandre Ballard is. I've never had a guy in 18 years been in the gym as much as this kid's been in the gym since he got here in Summer B. A relentless work ethic, really good scorer. He's got a lot to learn about our system, just like these other freshmen. And he's pushing these veteran wings. Got a lot of options there on the wing, of course, but really pleased with these guys to this point.
Me? Mike, obviously on paper this league got a lot better since last year.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think it's an advantage for you, though, that you're going to be an older team going into this and a lot of these guys are going to be a lot younger?
We hope so. I mean, we feel like if your locker room is right, your culture is right, that experience older, more bought-in guys are, in my opinion, are a little bit better than younger, high-character, bought-in guys. I think sometimes experience can backfire on you when you've got some bad chemistry and you've got a rough culture that you're dealing with, because I think older, frustrated guys might be harder to deal with than younger, frustrated guys who have a light at the end of the tunnel as a sophomore, as a junior, as a senior. So I guess it all depends on the chemistry of this team. Individually, I really like our character. That doesn't always mean you've got great team character like last year's group. If we do, I think our experience will be a positive for us rather than a negative. We said it when we first got here, but we got to find a way to get older as a staff. That was a challenge to us. And then obviously you want to try to stay older if you can. And we've done a pretty good job. Luck has come into play, of course, to help us balance our roster. And I like the amount of experience right now. We'll see again what that sacrifice and buy-in level is with this group as compared to last year's.
Mike, over here. Do you have a central message or a central focus for your team kind of as you go through these workouts and practices leading into the season?
Right now it's more just teaching our system and our philosophy and our terminology to these, recapping with the older guys and changing just subtle things, adding some things, getting rid of a few things, but for the most part, spend a lot of time teaching the young guys and having our older guys teach the young guys. It's such a long season. We really don't hammer our guys on process goals or philosophies, mindsets, anything like that, really until Thursday. It's when we really start getting into it. Basketball season for us starts Thursday. I know it started for some others, a couple days ago or today or tomorrow, what have you, but I feel like, and my staff agrees, it's such a long season. When you start hammering these guys right when school starts, by January, I feel like you can wear guys down. So it's been about enjoying the fall, getting better individually, getting to know each other better, enjoying some Gator football, recruiting season, all that type stuff. But we'll get into, as practice starts, it'll be about what's most important to us, what are our overall 5 or 6 defensive keys that are non-negotiables. Offensively, start defining some roles, and obviously we've got to get better on a daily and weekly basis.
We just talked to Cam Newbauer for a bit.
Okay.
How much interaction with him? What do you like that he brings to that program?
A bunch of interaction. Cam's everywhere. He's got energy, as you guys I'm sure have already noticed. He's got passion. He loves it. He's always popping in the office, and occasionally I'm popping over there, and we cross paths out here in the parking lot or in the lobby or what have you. There's some similarities there, and that we love the game. We're passionate about the Gators, and I know he feels really fortunate to be here like I do, and I love his energy level. I do. I think that they're going to do some big things.
Last year, Canyon Berry was 6th man of the year, and he was as a transfer, and he was able to impact. Do you expect Igor, also as a transfer from a mid-major program, to be able to have like a similar impact as a senior grad transfer?
Yeah, I do. I think there'll be similarities made all year between those guys. There are some natural similarities, but there are also some differences. They're different type players in certain regards. I think he'll have an ability overall, just generally speaking, to have a similar type impact. When you look at offensive averages and minutes per game and all those type things, I don't know where they'll stack up at the end of the year, but I think overall, if you look at Canyon as a arguable starter all year, even though he became the 6th man and won the award, of course, and settled into that role, I expect the same thing from Igor, where he could be 3rd on our team in minutes, he could be 6th on our team in minutes. I'm not sure. And that's up to him and the other guys. They determine who starts, and our guys determine who plays and how minutes are levied and are divvied out, excuse me, and how roles are defined and all those type things. But I do think he brings, like Canyon, you brought up similarities, experience obviously at a different program, and that's something we can get into here in a minute, but toughness, a feel, an IQ, an older kid who's been around the block. He's been coached, at a high level, just like Canyon was coming here, and a guy who can score it. He's a little bit of a different scorer. Canyon's a good shooter, of course, and Canyon, I think, had a deceptive first step and really created a lot of problems for opponents at driving it. And Igor can drive it too. Igor's really shooting it well right now, so I think time will tell. But talking about experience, and just in case we get this question, I like our experience. What's interesting, Denver and I were talking a little bit like last year, maybe even more so in that with Jalen and with Igor, you can look at it like we're really experienced, but not a lot of experience here. And collectively, we come off the Elite Eight run, and it's got to give you some confidence, of course. But that said, not one guy on our roster, I believe, has been to more than one NCAA tournament. So not trying to downplay it, but just being real with, the reality is I don't think we can hold on too heavily to the fact that we're like an incredibly experienced team, because Igor's trying to figure out what we're doing here. Jalen Hudson's got some stuff to figure out here. But if we do, we definitely are older. We're older, and that's hopefully that'll be a positive to Pat's point as opposed to a negative.
Going back to the impact of last season's run, what are some of the ways you've seen it directly impact recruiting and produce immediate results or open more doors in recruiting?
Probably just like with our guys, just more buy-in, a little bit more excitement. That's it. I mean, Brian, I don't have a great answer for you. I think that when you're recruiting a kid and he really likes everything about the University of Florida, and he likes the new staff. And, boy, that assistant recruiting me is a heck of a nice guy. And Mike White seems somewhat normal because I don't know him too well yet. But they haven't really proven. Now, we make the run, and, again, you talk about internal, external expectations. We go on and on and on. With recruiting, there definitely was a difference. Boy, you guys have it rolling. I'm not sure we have it rolling. But we had a nice run, and I think that we said it in the spring that ultimately we've probably had more calls returned, probably more texts returned than we did last offseason.
Canyon, Barry, Casey Hill, and Europe now, a lot of the guys who graduated from last team all spread out. But would you like those guys to come back later in the year and talk to your team from experience of last year, all the adversity you went through without the home games and everything, sort of give your team a pep talk on how to approach the season?
Last year's seniors?
Yes, last year.
Absolutely.
Like Justin Leon.
Yeah, one of the first things I did, other than go to the beach and go surfing after last season, was I got a picture of those four seniors kind of bowing to the crowd at senior night at the end of the game, which I thought was a special moment. That group was special. I love those guys. They were, and we talked about it ad nauseum last season and at the end of the season, but just a really good group. And, yeah, those guys are always welcome with open arms. All the guys Coach Donovan and Coach Kruger had, they're all welcome here all the time. And, in fact, Michael Frazier was in the gym today shooting. It's great to see him. And we've had a bunch of former Gators in and out all the time, but especially guys, you want guys that you've coached around. And all four of those guys, I'd be absolutely comfortable. I'm not sure they would, all four of them, holding court in the locker room and trying to motivate our guys. And I think our guys would listen to those guys. They respect those guys.
You should see if Frazier has another year of eligibility to shoot or something.
Yeah, we'll take him. He can fill it up.
We haven't mentioned Kavarius Hayes much, but I know you love his leadership. And
yes.
How has he kind of expanded his game, and how critical is he going to be early in the season with John out?
He's facing up a little bit more, Kavarius. He's worked on it. He's been as vocal as anybody on our team. He's been as vocal. We want, we're not going to name a captain. We don't need two or three guys being the only guys that are vocal. You know, we're challenged, and I'd like 13 guys to be vocal. I'd like to have 13 leaders. Kavarius has really embraced that as much as anybody. He's always led by example, but with those guys having left and there's more opportunity there to be heard, Kavarius has really stepped up in that role. Really pleased with that. His motor's still what it is, you know, what you get in every single day. You know, he hadn't had a bad practice since he enrolled in school from an effort, intensity, toughness standpoint. Anything else? All right. That's it. Thanks, guys.